In modern royal history, many remarkable women have made significant contributions, yet their brilliance has often been overshadowed by the fame of their children or descendants. An example of this is Princess Alice, the second daughter of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom. Princess Alice was born in 1843, the third child and second daughter of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom and Prince Albert. From a young age, Alice had her ideas and was independent, empathetic, and well-behaved. However, as the second daughter, she did not receive much attention from her parents. Her role within the family was that of the family caregiver. In her teenage years, she took care of her dying grandmother, the Duchess of Kent, as well as Prince Albert. The deaths of both individuals left Queen Victoria heartbroken, and it was Alice who comforted her mother and helped manage the affairs of the state. To further comfort her mother, Alice even moved her bed into Queen Victoria's room. During this time, Alice also went through her engagement and the planning of her wedding. Her fiancé was Prince Louis of Hesse, and this marriage was arranged before Prince Albert's death. Alice's engagement faced some ups and downs. Initially, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert had her in mind for a wealthy and high-status Dutch prince, but he did not take an interest in her, and the matter fell through. Ultimately, she chose Louis. Louis was the nephew of the Grand Duke of Hesse and the first in line to inherit the duchy. The wedding took place the following year, while the entire British royal family was still in mourning for Prince Albert, including Alice, who wore mourning attire both before and after the ceremony. As a result, the wedding was very somber. In Queen Victoria's words, it felt more like a funeral than a wedding. The newlywed Alice was still mindful of her mother's feelings and tried her best not to show her happiness in front of her. However, her inadvertent expressions of joy still upset Queen Victoria, creating a rift between them. After spending her honeymoon in England, Alice went to Darmstadt, the capital of Hesse, where she received a warm welcome from the public. Just a few days after arriving in Hesse, Alice faced a significant problem. There was no house for them to live in, and the Grand Duke of Hesse was unwilling to provide funds for the newlyweds to build a new home. As a result, the couple had to move into a small villa in the suburbs until their eldest daughter, Victoria, turned 3. Only then did they move into a new palace in the city, built using Alice's dowry money. A few years after Alice married into the Hesse family, the Austro-Prussian War broke out. Since Hesse supported Austria, Alice temporarily found herself at odds with her sister, Crown Princess Victoria of Prussia. During the war, Alice spent most of her time improving public healthcare and visiting wounded soldiers, bandaging their injuries. As Hesse began to struggle on the battlefield, she consistently urged the Grand Duke to surrender to Prussia. However, the Grand Duke likely thought victory was possible and ignored her advice. As a result, Hesse faced territorial losses and had to pay reparations. Alice sought help from her sister to intervene on their behalf but was turned down, leaving her somewhat displeased. In the end, it was Empress Maria Alexandrova of Russia who intervened, otherwise, Hesse would have been left with nothing. Yet, the reparations were still paid with Alice's money. Although Hesse was a grand duchy, it was a poor and remote area, so Alice frequently asked Queen Victoria for money. Queen Victoria was quite displeased with this habit, likely thinking that since Alice was already married and receiving an annuity, there was no need for her to keep asking for financial support. If the Hesse family hadn't had many beautiful daughters marrying well, they would truly be seen as the poor relatives of others. Perhaps being poor had its advantages, as there were fewer rules, allowing her to form a close bond with her 7 children. She loved them equally and taught them to be caring and responsible, passing on her nurturing qualities. Among her children, she and her husband were likely most fond of and proud of their second daughter, Ella. Ella was beautiful and intelligent from a young age, with a talent for drawing, attracting a multitude of suitors. At 14, she was pursued by her cousin, the future Kaiser Wilhelm II. When Wilhelm visited Hesse, he often read the Bible to Ella, wrote her love letters, and even proposed, but she rejected him. If Ella had agreed to marry Wilhelm II at that time, her fate might have been different, and Hesse's debts to Prussia might have been forgiven. However, Alice's life was as melancholic as her photographs. She was a carrier of the hemophilia gene, which her third daughter, Princess Irene of Prussia, and her fourth daughter, the last Empress of Russia, Alexandra, also inherited. Her youngest son, Fritti, was also affected by hemophilia. Fritti was diagnosed in 1873 after he injured his ear, and it took 3 days for the bleeding to stop. 3 months later, while playing with his brother Ernest, Fritti fell out of a window during a chase and died that same evening, which dealt a significant blow to Alice and Ernest. Later, Ernest told the nanny, "When I die, you will die just like everyone else. Why can't we die together? I don't want to die alone like Fritti." It seemed that his unintentional words came true. A month after his death, his wife and eldest son perished in a plane crash. Subsequently, the Hesse family faced extinction, leading to the merger of Hesse-Darmstadt and Hesse-Kassel. Since the death of her youngest son, Alice's relationship with her husband has deteriorated, leading her to focus more on medical and social welfare work. In 1877, Louis became the Grand Duke of Hesse, but by this time, Alice was no longer received with the same warm welcome she had enjoyed 15 years earlier when she first arrived in Hesse. The people of Darmstadt no longer welcomed her, and she found it challenging to adapt to the responsibilities that came with being the Grand Duchess. At this time, Queen Victoria also did not want Alice to return to her family home in the UK, so she lived elsewhere with her children. In 1878, an outbreak of diphtheria occurred in Darmstadt. Everyone except Alice and Ella contracted the illness. Alice quickly sent the healthy Ella to her grandmother's house, staying behind to care for her sick husband and 5 children. However, on November 15th, their youngest daughter, Marie, passed away. Fearing that this would further sadden her family, Alice pretended that nothing was wrong and continued to care for everyone. By December, Ernest, who had not seen Marie, began to ask where she had gone, prompting Alice to finally tell the truth. To comfort her grieving son, Alice kissed him. Within a week, Alice fell ill and soon passed away on December 14th, at the age of just 35. Her death date coincided with that of Prince Albert, making it a particularly difficult day for Queen Victoria. The deaths of Alice and Marie left Ernest and Alex feeling melancholic, especially Alex. Alice's death also filled Queen Victoria with deep regret. She began to remember the good qualities of her daughter and transformed her guilt into love for her 5 grandchildren. She felt as though she was the mother of these 5 grandchildren. During her lifetime, Alice dedicated herself to improving public healthcare and aiding the poor, funding support for impoverished mothers, and devoting most of her time to patients and the injured. However, despite her efforts, people's impressions of her were still largely shaped by her mother, Queen Victoria, and her 4 daughters.